Welcome to Shorty's SuperCoach and welcome to another video where Shorty's just cruising about. So I had to go to Lawn for work today, so I'm just driving, just approaching Anglesey at the moment. So I thought I'd kill the time by doing a bit of SuperCoach chat. I was listening to a bit of Kane Corns on SEN this morning, but he tends to lose me pretty quickly. I miss Jared in the mornings, but look, couple of other things floating around on my mind that I wanted to discuss as well. Just a bit of housekeeping. There will be Shorty SuperCoach leagues put out. Probably there might be one soon, but I tend to do those in the week or so leading up to round one. But they'll definitely be happening again. And a quick shout out to Gruffy, Caddy, Phil, a few of the Patreons that have jumped on board. If you are interested, I've done videos on that. You can check that out. You can certainly get yourself a shout out and a guaranteed league spot like a couple of those guys have done. But otherwise, I just wanted to broadly chat a bit of SuperCoach. I reckon I'll probably aim to post this one some stage over the weekend maybe. I'm actually going to the Vic All-Stars game tonight, so that should be good. Should get a pretty big crowd. I think it's sold out actually, so that should be pretty cool. And yeah, obviously hoping to get a good game. I mean, of course, the most important thing is to get plenty of funds raised for such an important cause, but I really do think we'll get a great game of footy. It's not going to be like finals-like intensity, but I reckon we're going to get some one-on-one matchups, some genuine contests between, space in the forward 50 and midfielders going toe-to-toe. Obviously, it can't happen in the season proper, but with all the defensive tactics. But I really do think we'll see arguably the best players providing the best version of our game. So I'm pretty pumped. But what did I want to talk about today? I want to hone in on that F3 position. I think it's just about as interesting a spot for our SuperCoach sides as we've got all year and that we're going to get. I think R2 is about similar, but I really think most people's back lines and midfields, they're pretty same. Certainly same in terms of structure, and largely the people and the players, there's some differences here and there, but I don't think they're causing us too many headaches. So I wanted to talk about F3, and there's quite a few names that are of interest. I mean, the obvious ones that come to mind are Jack Stephen and Devon Smith. They're certainly quite cheap and have done it before and conducting a fair bit of interest. You've got Hugh Greenwood, he's a guy who's in my side, and Christian Petrarca has really put himself on the map after an outstanding week one of the March Community Series. So they seem to be the big four that are contesting it for that F3 position. I'll talk about a couple other guys that, might prove a little bit of a smoky or are in a few sides but not absolutely popular. Anyway, those four guys, what do I think of them? Most of you would well know that Greenwood is in my team, and I've pumped him right up throughout the pre-season. But he's about 460, and then Smith and Stephen's like 360 and Smith is 335. And from what I can tell, had a game of two halves on Thursday night. I think he ended up with 20 odd touches, 6 tackles, whatever, but I know in the second half he had about 66 SuperCoach points and attended 6 centre bounces. And in the first half, I didn't watch the game, I just listened to portions, but I know in the first half he only attended 1 centre bounce and was on like 23. His contested possession count was down, but yeah, I'd be really interested to hear from Bombers fans and do a bit more research into it, because if we get what we saw in the second half, we're going to be, right in the mix at that sort of price. So I think I've already talked about Smith and I've done a video on him, and I didn't endorse him, to be fair. I was concerned about his body and concerned that we'd probably see more forward time, because I felt the Bombers, with Shield really involved and McGrath stepping up, I just wasn't exactly sure. But if his role is defined and he's going to be midfield with a little bit of forward, at that price, it does make it tough. I'm going to need some convincing in the next practice game, that's for sure. But we know what he's done a couple of years back. Jack Steven, super interesting. He could be anything. And it's all about getting his body right and obviously his mental health right. You know, that's bigger than footy. We want him to be nice and healthy. Ironically, I'm driving to Jack Steven territory down at Lawn. He was a Lawn boy, so. But I think Steven, of all these guys I'm going to talk about, probably has the highest ceiling, realistically speaking. He's averaged big numbers in a struggling club too at times. St Kilda were having a pretty tough time of it. He would cop the main bit of attention through the midfield a lot. But obviously last year, a lot of struggles. A couple of years before that, he did average only 90 and 94. Now, I'm not sure whether there was anything hurting his preparation or anything affecting that average. I don't think so. I'd have to have a look. But so it's not as though we expect him to just bounce back to those averages of 100, but it is possible because Tim Kelly has left the Cats. There's an absolute opening there for a bloke like Steven. And I'm so keen to see him in Cats colours, obviously for my own sort of interest, but I'm just so excited to see exactly what role they put him in. I'd be shocked if it was anything other than midfield because we've got quite a few small forwards and those pressuring types. I really just think the one person that we need to really fill that midfield spot, and it's a guy like Jack Steven. So really interested to see how that all pans out. And it's pretty tough to make a call until we see him actually running around there and playing a bit of footy, even if it's just practice games. So I've got a big watch on him. And Hugh Greenwood obviously is in my side, and I think he's just the safest of safe picks. There's nothing too sexy about it. I don't think he's capable of averaging much more than 95, but I also find it very hard to see him averaging anything less than 90. I just think with the new opportunity at Gold Coast, he's a ball winner, hard tackler, a very consistent player. He's not going to tear too many games apart and get a stack of Brownlow votes, but he's always going to be in and around the contest, doing some great work, and I just think he's a really safe, reliable pick. And if you're happy with that, then that's fair enough. The only reason why I've sort of been flirting with the idea of dispatching him is because Hayden Bonner at the Roos looking really tasty. I might need to find some coin to go up about 80k. I probably need to find. You know, I was just, yeah. Look, if Steven or Smith makes themselves just irresistible, then all of a sudden you sort of go, well, I need that 80k. So I'm probably not losing much in the points, but I'm getting an extra 100, maybe a little bit more if I go to Smith. So that's just a bit of the thought process. Christian Petrarca, he could be anything. You know, he really could. He was outstanding against the Crows, albeit it's a practice game. You know, he was getting plenty of opportunity. He looked so powerful and so fit, dynamic. Almost everything we'd sort of wanted from him. I reckon previously he's looked a bit, you know, fit but not absolutely shredded. He looked shredded, and he still had that ferocious attack on the ball, and it showed in his stats. It was like 27 contested touches, clearances, kicked the goal, was good overhead. So he did everything. He's at about 444k, I think. So he's definitely one to think about. His ownership has doubled since that game. So you guys know I'm a massive Petrarca fan, so I probably don't have to tell you too much because you already know it, but I think he is a fantastic ball winner, and it's just always been about getting opportunity in the midfield rather than being that sort of forward type with bursts in the midfield. So they're the main four. They're the big four, if you like, for that F3 position. But there are a few other guys that I think are worth considering. And Jade Gresham, watch him real close. Keep a close eye on him. I'm not sure on his ownership, but definitely keep him on your radar. I'm reading articles. He's going to be midfield. I think he had like 10 clearances in less than or about half the game in the first practice match. Keep a massively close eye on him. I reckon he's long been touted as the St Kilda rising star. Once he gets a switch in the midfield, gets his engine up, he's going to be a jet. Could be 2020. So if you're considering him, I can definitely understand. And look, even someone like Darcy Parish, don't fully write him off either. I think he's a guy that, we talk about Devon Smith. I think Parish is fighting for the same sort of stuff, working his way into that Essendon midfield for sure. And yeah, he's not the tidiest player with ball in hand, but he does win it extremely well. And I think he might just be a guy who, throughout his career, consistently averages between 85 and 95. I'm just guessing. I think at his peak, he can definitely be averaging around that 95 mark at the peak of his career, but I don't think he's ever going to burst through and break any records just because he has limitations in his game. But there is a lot to like about him, and again, like we always say, if these blokes can get opportunity in the midfield, because they're drafted as mids, if they can get that opportunity, then I think we will see the best that they have to offer. Chad Wingard is also a guy worth having a look at. I think he's in 7% of sides, and again, I'm a broken record here. If he moves into the midfield, all of a sudden we've got to take notice. I've seen him play games, play halves as a midfielder. He looks great around the stoppage. He's got great dynamic movements. He's smart. He's got football smarts. Yes, he can be frustrating, but I think when he's a forward, he can sometimes go a bit cold, but when he's hot, and it's a bit of a roller coaster of a selection. But I think as a midfielder, he's always had pretty good clearance numbers, and he might be that sort of type that can play a reasonable bit of midfield and then snare the odd goal. So I don't mind him as a selection. He's a bit risky, but again, you just got to identify and be confident with that role. Jordan Dawson is a bloke that people are discussing. Maybe it's just out of sight, out of mind. I'm not super keen on him. I just need a bit more reassurance. I probably need to have a bit of a closer look at him through the pre-season and just see exactly what the Swans have in mind for him. And he's a little pricier, so I probably don't feel like I'm getting absolute bang for buck either. So probably a little bit more confidence in some others, and they're cheaper, so it makes it a bit of a no-brainer. And Andy Brayshaw as well. He's a guy at the Dockers that is expected to make a fairly good step up in his game, should get more midfield minutes. The likes of Mundy is surely going to ease out of that midfield as time goes on. Walters, very interesting. What is his exact spot? Surely midfield, but I'm hearing some whispers that he could be playing slightly more forward just because they need him in that forward line so badly. Maybe that's their plan, to get like Brayshaw and Chera, and they also lost Langdon. Some of these new crop of players coming through to support Fife. I really do like him. He's about 382, I think. So going to be really interesting to see where he can take his game. Because he's got heaps of talent. He's a former really high pick. He's got heaps of talent. I think we could start to see him build really, really well. Whether that converts to premium status, I'm not too sure. He's probably the riskier of the picks. But all these guys, some are guys that have done it before and have been injured, and we're hoping they can do it again. Some of these guys have been around for a bit and have got a new lease on life with a new club or a new position, and some of these guys, we're anticipating a breakout. So it's really interesting. The anticipating a breakout is always nerve-wracking because you don't have anything to base it off. And the ones where we're hoping, like Smith and Stephen, for them to return to their best, very, very interesting, because that can be gold, or they can just be on the decline and they've already played their best footy. So it's always very, very interesting. A couple of guys for your draft that I reckon will have really good seasons and improve. Don't disregard Brandon Parfitt at the Cats. I think he'll get a fair bit of opportunity. Talented player. Might be a sneaky one for your draft. And Shai Bolton as well at the Tigers. I reckon he's a really good chance to, again, have a fair bit more midfield time. And from what I heard in the practice game, intra-club, he was really, really exciting. So they're a couple of guys to just, you know, don't go picking them in classic, but, you know, little something for your draft when all your mates are like, Jesus, who do I pick? You're just like, thank you very much. But anyway, we've just stopped at Moggs Creek, Paddy Dangerfield territory, just at the roadworks here at the bridge. So I'm going to sign off. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully tonight's a good game, and yeah, I'll be watching it pretty close over the practice games throughout the weekend, so I'll be previewing everything that on Monday or whenever it sort of winds up. Probably Monday I'll have the video out, so yeah, stay tuned for that with a couple other videos over the weekend. Cheers.